Migrants flooded New York City Hall for a council hearing on the Black migrant experience. Meanwhile, New York City's Mayor Eric Adams is continuing to evict New York migrants as they're facing a strained, overflowing shelter system. That's right, guys. The big number, 9,100 families with children staying in the city's 17 humanitarian emergency response and relief centers who received eviction notices between October 2023 and February 2024. The situation is even more dire for single people without children, who, by the way, starting September 2023, had to reapply for shelter every 30 days. As explained by Lisa Schwartzwald, the director of economic justice at the New York Immigration Coalition, it's not that these people are losing the right to shelter, it's that they're making it more difficult to access that right. But what most folks are concerned about is the massive drain on our resources that this migrant crisis is causing. For starters, did you guys know a family of 4 migrants in New York City receives more monthly funding than a family of 4 that includes a military veteran who receives disability compensation? Migrants getting paid more than veterans, you guys. The Big Apple said that there is no end in sight to the influx of migrants to the city, and it projects an extended timeline of the current rate of migration means a cost to American taxpayers of approximately $12 billion by the 2025 fiscal year. And now, New York City Comptroller Brad Lander just proposed giving each of these 10,000 migrants pouring into the Big Apple free legal representation. That's right, guys, free lawyers as well, paid for by the American taxpayer. More on the New York migrant crisis and migrants getting evicted later in this video. Also happening in the Big Apple, Donald Trump's very unfair criminal trial. This is at the hands of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg and Judge Juan Merchan. Very unfair is what our former president called the trial when he spoke to reporters in the latest court session. They finally finished selecting the 12 jurors in the hush money case against the former president. But according to Trump, he's supposed to be in New Hampshire, in Georgia, in North Carolina, and South Carolina. He's supposed to be in a lot of different places campaigning, but instead he's been here all day on a trial that really is a very unfair trial. And you should have heard how ridiculous some of Donald Trump's juror candidates were. Good thing that they were paying attention, because one prospective juror almost got through even after posting anti-Trump posts, saying things like she wouldn't believe Donald Trump if his tongue were notarized, and that Donald Trump is a racist, a sexist narcissist. Trump lawyer Susan Nichol said her posts about Trump up until that point were vitriolic, and that she harbors deep hatred for him. Now imagine if that were the type of juror Trump had in his New York City hush money trial. So yeah, you can definitely see this as an unfair trial for the former president. Lots of important national events happening in Big Apple, guys. It's time we take a hard look, because the future of our nation is at stake. You ready, guys? All right, let's dive in. So first, the migrant crisis in New York, as shown in the flood of migrants at New York City Hall for a hearing on the Black migrant experience. Check this out.
We are having a hearing censoring the experiences of Black immigrants in New York City. And if you are not overwhelmed by the beautiful Black faces that are present here today and surrounding City Hall, something is profoundly wrong with you.
Now, hundreds of illegals gathered outside of City Hall today ahead of a New York City Council hearing on what's called the Black migrant experience. Now, the goal presumably was to better understand how the city is addressing language access barriers, cultural competency challenges, health needs, and other roadblocks that the so-called newcomers face.
I am surrounded right now by hundreds of illegal immigrants from New Guinea and also from Haiti, all right? So majority single men from Africa. We have been told as American citizens that all of these people are coming into our country because they are seeking asylum, but every single migrant that I've spoken to today has talked about how they are here simply to work.
A big problem for many Americans is how we can't fix our own homeless crisis, but yet we'll give homeless shelters, even hotel rooms, to illegal immigrants. To respond to that, New York City Mayor Eric Adams has framed the city's shelter eviction policy as a tool to direct human traffic in their strained, overflowing shelter system. First announced in October 2023, it encourages the families to look for alternative housing after they've served 60-day notices. So far, they total roughly 9,100 families with children staying in the city's 17 humanitarian emergency response and relief centers who received eviction notices between October 2023 and February 2024. Single people without children, starting September 2023, they had to reapply for shelter every 30 days. On March 15th, the city limited the 30-day shelter stays even further. From now on, single adults won't be able to reapply for extended stays unless they can present extenuating limiting circumstances. But according to interviews of several families during and after their eviction and re-intake process, they're unanimously grateful for the help that they're getting from the city and its agencies. But all of them describe their experiences as confusing, frustrating, and exhausting. Really, you can see the very real need to cut costs and manage the number of people in their strained shelter system. More than 65,000 people are currently staying in the city's 216 sites across several shelter systems. Nearly half of the families served with eviction notices find themselves without places to go, so they end up back at the arrival center seeking shelter again. If the shelters are full, these families get 28-day hotel vouchers through the Hotel Vouchering Program. After this period, they're right back to square one, scrambling between trying to find a place to live, simultaneously applying for asylum and work authorization, and keeping their children in schools. Despite the stress and the confusion this situation causes, city officials assure that evicted families do not end up on the streets. Advocates confirm that each family with an expired notice that came back for re-intake has received a new placement. On the other hand, the situation is tougher for single adults. Many spend weeks, maybe even months, waiting for shelter space, with some ending up homeless. Others end up with makeshift shelters and basements, unsanctioned commercial spaces, even vehicles. Now I think you guys get the picture. The recent surge in migration is really putting a strain on New York City. Local agencies are stretched thin, trying to handle the daily influx while respecting migrants' rights to asylum and shelter. And now, Mayor Eric Adams is seeking an additional $400 million from the state to help manage this crisis. Plus, the city has started a pilot program offering 500 shelter families prepaid debit cards to buy food and baby essentials. Now that's another thing that's causing an uproar among citizens. The fact that a family of 4 migrants in New York City receives more monthly funding than a family of 4 that includes a military veteran who receives disability compensation. Meaning, migrants' monthly payments in New York City is higher than veterans' compensations. More on that in a little bit. But real quick, I just want to remind you guys, if you guys appreciate the real-time info and the deep dive analysis into this video, don't forget to show our channel some love, light up the like button, hit the subscribe button, and turn on all notifications. It's totally free, helps you stay updated, and not to mention, it helps us grow our YouTube family right here. All right, guys, so let's get back to it. So New York City has taken in more than 175,000 migrants and spent upwards of $1.45 billion just in fiscal year 2023 to shelter, feed, and provide services to migrants. So the city is now saying that there is no end in sight. In fact, they're already projecting a cost to the city of approximately $12 billion by the 2025 fiscal year. Mayor Eric Adams even said that the influx of migrants could destroy his city. But this has not stopped Eric Adams from handing migrants prepaid debit cards that, in certain cases, like food assistance, dwarf the amounts provided to families of legal status. For example, the average family of 4's monthly SNAP payment is $713, but migrant families of 4 receive $1,400 a month. That total is also higher than the military veteran's disability compensation. A veteran who has a 50% disability rating and a spouse and 1 child receives $1,255 every 4 weeks. When a child under age 18 is added to that family, the payment rises $51 to $1,306 per month, still nearly $100 less than what a migrant family of 4 receives from the prepaid card assistance. New York City Republican Councilwoman Vicky Palladino, she voiced her criticism of the Migrant Handout Program, saying that one of her own employees is a single mother with 2 kids, and she doesn't even have $350 a week to spend on food, period. She also wrote in an article how the city is currently staring down a multi-billion-dollar deficit. Meanwhile, their streets are falling into disorder, their infrastructure crumbles, their social safety net is collapsing, and their frontline workers are stretched beyond their limits. But they're still willing to shell out billions of dollars to these migrants. People say the losers in the Senate won't do anything, especially the Democrats. Well, one suggestion from the New York City Comptroller Brad Lander, he's certainly drawn some outrage. Lander claimed that giving each of the tens of thousands of migrants pouring into the Big Apple free legal representation could net billions in economic benefits for New York State. Now, what he failed to mention is how much it will cost to cover the legal fees of these hundreds of thousands of migrants. So yeah, it's pretty safe to say that we're dealing with a migrant crisis here. Some even call it a migrant invasion. Let's be sure to stay vigilant, guys. More on this in my future updates. But don't go away yet, guys. Another major event is happening in New York, the very unfair trial against former President Donald Trump. Our Republican nominee called the trial very unfair as he told reporters that he was spending his precious time sitting in these trials. He was supposed to be in New Hampshire. He was supposed to be in Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. He's supposed to be in a lot of different places racist campaigning. But no, he's actually been stuck there all day on a trial that he believes is really a very unfair trial. I've also heard critics say how unfair the hush money trial is against the former president, mainly because it's in New York City. Even Donald Trump's team has argued that the trial should be moved from New York City and moved to a new venue with a new judge and a balance between Republicans and Democrats. Some also say that Alan Bragg needs to be put in prison and pay restitution to President Donald Trump and the American taxpayers. But just to show you, one prospective juror was booted from the selection because she said in a past Facebook post that she wouldn't believe Donald Trump if his tongue were notarized and that he was an anathema to everything that she was taught about love. She also called him a racist, sexist, narcissist. As Donald Trump's lawyer Susan Nichol said, the juror's post about Donald Trump up until that point were vitriolic, and she harbors a deep hatred for Trump. I don't think I have to point this out how this is not a person that could be fair. But what do you guys think? Is former President Donald Trump getting a fair trial in New York? What about the migrants pouring into the city? Should they be given SNAP benefits, Social Security, maybe even other benefits higher than our veterans are getting? Drop your thoughts down below, and let's keep this conversation going in the comments. More on this and the news that matters to you in our next videos. I'll see you guys there.